Joining us this afternoon is Dominick Albano, Director of Digital Engagement for the Catholic Telegraph, the official magazine of the Archdiocese of Cincinnati. In addition to his work at the Archdiocese, Dominick is a nationally sought-after speaker and author of 2 books. Known for his ability to bring the faith into everyday life, his humor, and his passion, Dominick has served in almost every aspect of parish life, from baptism prep to youth ministry to adult faith formation. As communicators for Women Religious, collaboration with diocesan editors and communication teams is essential. How can you grab an editor's attention with your news? In the world we live in, communications are constantly evolving, and while daily newspapers still exist, in the world of the church, they aren't financially feasible. Many dioceses have moved to bi-weekly or monthly formats with a heavy focus on feature stories. They use digital platforms to supplement print with timely news. So you have a story. Where does it fit into these formats? Dominick is here today to discuss how to share our stories with diocesan communication teams in a way that gets our information out there. Welcome, Dominick.
Thank you very much. I'm Dominick Albano. I'm the Director of Digital Engagement for the Archdiocese of Cincinnati. So I do all things website, email, social media, all forms of digital communication, drive the strategy, and as many of you know what it's like working for the church, that also means that I drive a lot of the execution as well. So I've been in your shoes. Before working at the Archdiocese, I worked for Dynamic Catholic, so Matthew Kelly's Catholic nonprofit, primarily as a content lead. So that role required to drive the vision and project manage development of our sacramental prep resources, which we call the Catholic Moments. So our marriage prep resources, I had a heavy hand in the children's preparation materials and RCIA. I've published a couple books. So I've got a diverse background when it comes to communications. I also, as mentioned, do parish missions. I was just in Houston this past weekend speaking for 2 marriage conferences. So as far as communications go, I get all over the place. I would say that my specialty or my area of expertise is being able to take any sort of information and present it in the most dynamic and engaging way possible. I'm very good at taking a nugget and saying, okay, why does this matter to people? And being able to craft a message in a way that will actually make people care. So I think that really fits well with this topic today for the workshop. I've kind of presented this as like 10 best practices in terms of getting your story out there. But I am going to try to leave some time at the end for just Q&A, like what issues are you facing? What would you like to know? Does that sound good? Okay, great. So when I first started the Archdiocese about 4 years ago, we would run these monthly content meetings. Monthly content meetings were an opportunity for internal and external stakeholders to come and meet with us on the editorial team for the Catholic Telegraph and say, it was always 2 months out, still is today. All right, 2 months out, here's our theme for the magazine. What stories do you have? And we'd get everyone from people like yourselves who are representing religious organizations to, we'd always get a representative from our Catholic cemeteries, different offices internally, like our youth evangelization office or the permanent diaconate office or the stewardship office. And at the very first meeting I was at, I asked this question, why should I care? It was the first time, we're going through the meeting, and this is my first recommendation or my first best practice. Ask yourself this question: why should I care? It sounds a little bit mean. I do say it a little bit tongue in cheek, but really, when you're looking at your story, ask yourself this question first. Like, why should anybody care? We live in a world where we are flooded with information, right? Every reader out there, and this is a question that your editorial directors have to ask themselves, is like we're all competing for attention, right? And we're competing for attention with, the Bengals game tomorrow night. We're competing for attention with the newest Marvel movie that came out. We're competing for attention with, our readers' children's play that they're going on and what they got going on at school and their sports teams, right? Like, we are flooded with information. So trying to get readers to give us attention, like, we really need to present it in a way that that really answers this question: why should the reader care? And I put on here, first off, ask yourself this question twice. So really, when I do this, I actually do this when all right, here's my story, or here's my idea, or here's the piece of information I'm trying to communicate. Okay, why should anyone care about this? All right, and I come up with an answer to that, and then I say, why should anyone care about that answer? Right. So it's really asking, like, 2 levels down, why is this important, and trying to get at the core idea of why this really should matter to people's lives. Okay, so when you're out there and you've got this story on hand, ask yourself this question first. Like, if I'm a reader, why should I care? And this takes us to the next point. Really get into their minds. Think about who, if it's something you're producing, like, think about your readers. But if you are pitching to an editor for an archdiocesan or diocesan publication, find out about their readers. Who is really reading their magazine, and who do they want to be reading their magazine or their newspaper? So, for example, with the Archdiocese of Cincinnati, we just about 2 years ago converted from a monthly newspaper to a monthly magazine. We know that our readers are predominantly women above the age of 55, but we are trying to trend younger and trying to reach a younger audience and more of a gender-neutral audience, or really just kind of we're really targeting young families, okay? So we try to keep in mind, right, this is who we know historically is reading our paper, but this is who we're trying to reach. And so I would take this piece of information, I'd say, okay, I am, right, like a dad, in the 30 to 40-year-old range, who's got his kids in Catholic school. Why should I care about this story? Like, why should I care? And I'm going to come up with an answer, and then I'm going to say, well, why should I even care about that? Okay, so the story is making something up off the top of my head. There's a mass on All Saints Day at Gate of Heaven Catholic Cemetery, and they want us to put something in the magazine about it, right? They want us to advertise that mass for them. All right, well, if I'm them, I'm going to say, well, why would my reader, why would the 35-year-old guy with a couple of kids at Catholic school, why should he care about that? Okay, and then I'm going to come up with some sort of an answer. Well, this is a really special mass. It's outdoors. It's at a cemetery where a lot of families don't often, you only spend time there when someone's died, but these are actually really beautiful places of prayer. And the Archbishop's going to be saying the Mass. Okay, there's a bunch of answers to why should I care. Why should I care about any of that? Why should I care about Mass being outdoors? Why should I care about the Archbishop being there? Why should I care about a unique place to pray? And I might answer myself and say, hey, as a family, we're so used to going through the motions, and we just go to Mass, we hear the same priest in the same building. It's easy to go through the motions, and the faith is never new or different or engaging. But if you want to engage your family in the faith, this is a great way and a great opportunity to present them something that they've never seen before. So you can see how, that was off the top of my head, right? But I'm taking something that's, if it comes into the editor as hey, we're having Mass, we're having this event on All Saints Day, the Archbishop's saying, can you put something in the magazine about it? That's not that attractive to us, right? But by asking this question twice of why should I care, you get to these core values that now I can go to the editor and I can say, hey, we really want to help spread the faith to young families and present a whole new side of our Catholic faith that they may have never experienced before. We're having this special Mass, it's outdoors, it gets people out of their routine, right? So you can see how I can present this story in a much more appealing way. A third level of thinking through this mind of the reader, this is something I always try to keep in mind. So most people, this is it might sound a little cynical, but I believe it's true. Most people out there, painting with very broad strokes, they just want life to work, right? They just want their lives to work. You think about our lay people, our people in the pews, they don't want their car to break down. They want their kids to get, decent grades. They want them to be on the field and starting in their games. They want finances to work. They want to get through the workday. They don't want the washing machine to break down. This is, they don't want anyone to get cancer, right? This is the stuff of real life for most people. They just want life to work, right? And most people, what they're worried about on a daily basis is things like, I don't like my boss, or I don't like my job, or my job doesn't pay enough, or I'm worried about money, or my grandma's sick, or my friend was just diagnosed with cancer, or my car just broke down, or I'm in a fight with my kid, or I'm in a fight with my spouse, or I'm afraid my marriage. Like, these are the kind of real things that are going through most people's lives. Not all of those things, but it's something along those lines. And so being able to present, right, kind of working working this through, like asking, taking our stories, asking why should it matter to the reader, and asking how does it help that reader make their life work better, right? I think all of these things are going to make your story much more attractive to an editor. I know it's mentioned in the it's kind of the topic of like building relationships with our editors in the Archdiocese. The truth is, like, we are hungry for stories, whether it's monthly or bi-monthly or weekly or whatever their publication schedule is. Like, we are hungry for stories. We just want good stories, right? Like, we don't need to have a great relationship if you present me a great story. It could be the first time you reach out to me and I'm like, this is an awesome story and I want to share it. We are hungry for materials. So that's best practice number one, is use this question, why should I care? Second, lead with beauty. This was a big part of us transforming from a newspaper to a magazine. We really believe in spreading the gospel using beauty, truth, and goodness, and beauty first. You too, lead with beauty. High resolution images, light those images brightly, and feature people. I can't tell you how many times we get a press release and it's like a pixelated image that you can, I think somebody took it with one of those old cameras that you like click and crank, I can't tell you how many times those images are taken inside of a darkly lit church where people are washed out, there's no sense of background, or it's a picture of, hey, religious organ, we had 7 baptisms, this parish had 7 baptisms at RCA, and it's just a picture of their baptismal font with no one there. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this, We as Catholics do have a bad habit of not using the beauty of our faith and presenting things beautiful. So lead with beauty. Like, make sure everything you send us has at least 2 or 3 different images attached, like not one, like give us some options, some landscape, some portrait, because we got to do layout. We need to know how things are going to fit in, whether we're using it in print or we're using it in digital. We want, to be able to include some sort of a beautiful image with it, and make sure those images are really professionally done. Really, lead with that beauty, because that's immediately going to make it that much more attractive. If I've got a story from you and I know that I can put up some sort of beautiful imagery with it, I'm immediately going to be that much more likely to want to use it. So lead with whatever you can do, even if it's providing some sort of graphics with your stories. When you send a press release or you propose a story idea, invest in making sure that it's presented beautifully. I don't have, not all of us have like photography skills, and I know we are often people who, like one person who has to wear many hats. I am not a photographer or videographer, whatsoever, but I know of a lot of organizations who face those challenges and get really creative. Gate of Heaven Cemetery, who's our archdiocese, one of the cemeteries in the Archdiocese, they're really smart. I really admire this. They do a photo contest every year. They say, every year, I think it happens in the fall is the submission time, and there's it's literally like $100 prize for first place and $50 for second place and $50 for third place or something like that. It is not a lot of money, and they get photographers that come out, and every photographer submits, 20 or 30 beautifully shot. They're using Photoshop, they're editing these photos, and of course, as part of their submission, like Gate of Heaven owns all of those photos. So every single year, they're getting all of these beautiful images of their cemetery. I mean, like literally hundreds of images brand new every year for $200, okay? So I share that example with you to like get creative. You might be like, wow, geez, I can't go spend $5,000 on a camera, or I don't have someone else who I can hire to come out and be a photographer, or I don't have the necessary skills. There's probably some really creative ways that you can make sure that you get people those beautiful images that are going to help get your story noticed. All right, next best practice, next reminder. So this is a big one, and we're probably going to spend the most time on it. Your story, and this is like foundational for every organization, every person, every time we're presenting, like your story is not about you, right? Whatever we want to share, whatever story we want to put out there, our stories are not about us. And I am going to walk you through in this next slide something that I use all the time. It's called the story brand framework, and it's going to flesh out this idea that our story is not about us. Your story is not about you. All right, so this is called the story brand framework, and basically what I mean when I say the story is not about you, what I mean is that too often we place ourselves as like the hero of a story, okay? So we're the main character. Hey, the Archdiocese of Cincinnati is awesome. We have this magazine coming out. We want you all to know about it. Look at the cool things we're doing. We make ourselves the main character of the story. A story well constructed that a reader is actually going to care about features them as the main character. They're the main character in the story, and we are the guide, okay? So you see, meets a guide who understands them. So I'm going to walk through how this works, and you can see, I've stolen all of this from storybrand.com, this slide. I do recommend, check that out. It's a good free resource. I mean, there are paid aspects to it, but a lot of what you can take is free. You can get these kind of worksheets for free. I use these when I've published 2 books. Both books I wrote, the initial idea was written out through this storyboard, and then every individual chapter was written out using this storyboard. So it really does have a lot of diverse uses, and I use this, I write a couple of monthly columns for our magazine. I use this every single month to make sure that I'm not making the story about me, but really presenting it in a way that helps the reader. So our character is the reader, okay? That they're the hero, and that's because every single one of us is the hero of our own stories. You here right now are here. I'm not the hero, you're the hero. You are here because you want to get better at being able to present stories to diocesan publications and get them noticed. You have problems with that. I'm the guide who is going to show you a plan that tells you what to do, and if you listen to what I tell you to do, you're going to have success, and if you don't listen to what I tell you to do, you're going to have failure. You see how that works out, right? Now, if you were to come in and all I was to do is to place myself as the hero and just talk about how awesome we are and at the Archdiocese and how awesome I am, it wouldn't help you, right? That would not actually be helpful to you. At the end of the day, whatever I was sharing would be presented in a way that it would fall on deaf ears because it doesn't invite you into the story. It doesn't make you the main character, okay? So our readers are the main character. We always start there. Who is our audience? What do they want, okay? What do they really want? So I've already alluded to some of this, right? If I'm thinking, okay, we've got young Catholic families. That's who our main character is. What do they want? They want their life to work. Now, I might get more specific, right? Let's say I'm writing a story about Catholic schools. I might think all right, what do they really want from their Catholic school? I might drill down a little bit and get to some specific aspect of what that reader wants. But I'm always going to start with what do they want, and then I'm going to say what's the problem that stops them from getting it, right? What is so my reader wants their life to work. Or actually, let's go back to the Mass on November 1st, All Saints Day Mass. I've got a reader, they just want their life to work. In this, for that story, I'm going to say, well, they do want their kids to be engaged in some way with the faith. They want them to have a positive experience of their Catholic faith. What's the problem? Okay, so they have a problem that's stopping them from getting what they want. Here I'm going to say, well, Mass isn't really made for young kids, and they don't, the kids just kind of go through the motions. We go to the same Mass every week. It's the same priest. It's just not engaging. They're not engaged. We're falling into this routine. We're into a rut, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to list all these problems. So now here's where we come in, right? Here I'm coming in. I'm saying, I've got this story, right? I've got this thing. I've got this Mass, right? I am Gate of Heaven Cemetery. We are, we've been around for hundreds of years. We're the Archdiocesan Cemetery. We care for people in their greatest, tragedies that they face and some very difficult times in life. Come to our Mass, right? Come to this Mass on All Saints' Day. If you come, this Mass is going to be like nothing you experience on a weekly basis at your parish. It's going to be totally different and totally unique. And if you come, your kids are going to experience something that they're not used to experience. It gets them outdoors. They get to see the Archbishop. They get to be in this beautiful place. It's going to introduce you to this new part of the Archdiocese. Or you could just go back to your routine and just keep going through the motions. We can do this with any story that we have, right? Whatever story that you have, come up with a way. You can literally go to storybrand.com. You can print off this framework, or really just think, right? How do I make my reader the hero of the story? How do I present what I have to share with them? How do I present what I have to share with them in a way that places them as the hero, and all I'm trying to do is help them get what they want? This is how we make stories that the readers actually respond to, that they take action with, that they write into their editors and they say how much they loved it or how they went to this thing and it meant a lot to them. And when the editor reads through your story, they're actually going to want to print that. I can't tell you how many times we get a press release and it is really just a straightforward who, what, where, when, why. It's just got, we're the organization running it. This is the location. This is where the thing is. This is who's going to be there. And then it's hey, can you please put this in your magazine? And it's like, well, how does this fit into the lives of the people that we're creating this magazine for? So just kind of going to step back here for a second. This helps you to present your story in a way that shows the readers how your story helps them get what they want. And ultimately, that's what that's going to be what's most attractive to them. And that's what's most attractive to an editor. Remember, we don't need to be convinced to want to have a great relationship with you. We just are looking for great content that's going to help our readers in their lives. So again, storybrand.com, there's the framework. It helps you remember that you are not the hero of whatever story you're trying to tell. And even if it's like a story about your, sister who just got back from her missionary work in South Africa, and you want to share the great things she did, even that, she's not the hero. The reader is always the hero of the story, and we have to we have to make sure our story fits into their lives and shows them how their lives get better. Okay. I've mentioned this a couple times, so I should have numbered these, but my next there are 10, but my next best practice is this. Don't just promote events. We do get a lot of press releases that are just this, we have an event coming up, here's where it is, here's what time it runs, and we want you to come. And it's all very well-intentioned, right? It's this missionaries are having their multicultural dinner on Friday, October 15th from 6 to 7 p.m. at this restaurant in downtown Cincinnati. It's a fundraiser for us, and we really want people to come up. We want to help spread the word. Can you put something in the magazine or put something on your website? Well, that's not really a story to us. There's not really an angle for us to say, to our readers how this is going to help them. So don't just promote events. I really do recommend that for your internal communication. So changing hats a little bit, like make sure you are building out at every opportunity your email lists and your social media following, because promoting something like just attending an event is really something for internal communications. And for the record, I have to deal with this all the time where because I run all of the digital for the Archdiocese, I will get an office that comes to me and says, hey, I want it on the banner of our website, the banner of the homepage, we've got this event coming up. And I have to explain to them, like, no, that's for your internal communications to your constituents. It's not actually for the banner of our of our archdiocesan-wide website. So how do you make an event something that is promotable? Find something incredible about it or unique. I used the word incredible, and then I was like, well, not everything is incredible, but really like find something that will give some credibility to why I should promote this, right? So is it, Bishop Robert Barron is coming to speak as the main person at our dinner, fundraising dinner? Or is there, some sort of a unique topic that is, a really hot button kind of a thing? One of the high schools was having in a speaker, this was going back like a year, and I have no idea who the speaker was, I don't remember now, but they were talking about like transgender issues for Catholic schools. Like that was a topic that was like, okay, this is something that we actually can promote, because young families, even in Catholic schools, are like this is an issue we're dealing with and trying to figure out how to like navigate these muddy waters, right? So find some aspect of your event that makes it credible to be presented to the audience. Make sense? All right. Our next best practice. Okay, so really know your content. And what I mean by this is really how is it best going to fit? How is your content best going to fit in the publication that you're presenting it to? So features, just again, best practices here. Features are best for print. You often want features to be inspirational, bright, energetic. Timeless is a big thing. Like, something that's going to go in our magazine. Events like don't really work well in a magazine because, with the production schedule and the mailing schedule, it's really hard to hit some, we know, for example, the November issue of the Catholic Telegraph magazine is probably going to hit mailboxes sometime the third week of October, but there's going to be like a 10 to 12 day window of variance, and the November issue, it's the November magazine, so we're not going to include October dates, but you don't want to like put something in there that's too far out. But then what if you put it in there and then the time is passed? Or like those kind of things, anything like time bound really doesn't work in things that are not weekly or daily. And as mentioned in the intro, most diocesan publications anymore, you're not going to find even a lot of weekly, right? Most of them are going to a monthly or even 10 months a year or 6 months a year, that sort of thing. So timeless is really important. And then story focused. And what I mean by that is story, not events. These kind of, features are best for monthly, and I put monthly-ish because, again, it might be bi-monthly, it might be, it could be, twice a month. Some newspapers are going to still be twice a month. But so really looking at those, what is the feature story? So that, like, Sister whoever is coming back from South Africa where she's spent the last 3 years minister, like that's a beautiful feature story. Know that this is a feature story. Your time, what I put as timely or time-bound articles are going to be best for digital. So we have our Catholic Telegraph magazine, which is awesome. It's great. We also have our Catholic Telegraph website, which we get, somewhere between 30 and 100,000 visitors every single month, right? Like we can get a lot of eyeballs on that website, and on there, like I can't have 10 news stories a month. I need to have 2 or 3 new pieces of content every single day. So we do, again, we want your content, right? We want your content. But I also, I need, it to be led with beauty, and I need to know how that story is going to fit in. So anything time-bound is going to be best for digital, because I can put it up there really quickly. I can have it featured on our homepage while it makes sense, and then I can bring it down from the homepage, and it's going to live there forever because it doesn't cost me any space to have that post stay up. It can be much more informational, and this can be good too because it gives me a chance to, something like your event, or something that is I know I keep picking on events. I'm trying to think of like another example. But if it's a time-bound piece, like I can get the post up there. I can mention it on my social media, because I do have all of these publication tools that are cheaper space than print media. So this is, of course, going to be best for daily or weekly kind of a thing. I do sometimes get a little frustrated where, like, I will get like I'll get emailed something like a press release asking me to promote something, and I'll say, yeah, this sounds great. I'll be able to get it in. Let's say it's, I get this email from someone like you, right, in August, and the event or whatever it is happens in November. And I get an email in September like, hey, you said you were going to put something out there and I haven't seen anything out there. My answer is, your event happens in November. I'm literally going to post it like 10 days before your event, because, and it might be different if there's like a registration time or whatever. But I, as the digital guy, I want whatever I post to be relevant to the reader. Like I want them to be able to take immediate action, and it needs to be relevant to them very quickly. So just really think through when I put this, like, know your content. Like, what am I actually trying to accomplish with this? What is this piece of content going to do? And then present it to the right person. A lot of dioceses or archdioceses, they might only have like a one-person team, but often, like, we have a really small team. But if we get something in to our general communications inbox, and it says, we really think this is probably going to be best for a digital, an email newsletter, or for your social media, and it goes directly to me, it's going to get to the right person quicker, and that's going to, kind of get you through some of those barriers. Whereas if you just sent it to the editor, it might sit in her inbox because she's thinking like, well, I know this is not good for print, or vice versa. If I'm just, I get something and I'm forwarding it on to her because something's been sent to me that's really better for print, then those things can get lost in translation. So know your content well and position it well. Our next best practice is be intentional. Okay, so this is a big one. We get a lot of press releases, and we love getting them because we do want your content. But when I say be intentional, don't send us like 4 things a week every week, right? Or even, we have offices within the Archdiocese who want us to print a feature story that highlights their ministry every single month. And they'll get mad at us if we're not printing something every single month. We only print, once a month. Or some dioceses, it's going to be once every 2 months, or maybe 10 months out of the year. A lot of dioceses will take the summer off. And we have a lot of constituents who want space, and we've got a limited number of pages. So particularly for print, like, be really intentional. Like, don't send us 30 stories and throw 30 things against the wall and hope one thing sticks. Like, be really intentional about, look at your year, look at what's coming up, and what are the really magnificent pieces of information, or the really incredible stories that you say, hey, this is a big one, and then really fight for that one, right? That doesn't mean only do one thing a year, right? But it means, all right, I'm going to pick the 3 or 4 or 5 like big stories throughout the year, and I'm really going to like try to get, I'm really going to focus on getting these ones published or into print or onto the website. As an editor, if you come to me with something, and we're like, oh great, like we haven't worked with you in a while, we want to help you out, we're going to get this into the magazine, and then the next month there's some much more incredible story, but we're like, well, we just featured you and we've got 10 other organizations that want us to feature them. And so now we can't. And you're saying, well, wait, like this story was actually much more important than that story. Like we'd much rather have this thing go out than that thing. So really be intentional about what do you want out and when do you want it out. Does that make sense? Really be targeted. So like the magazine, we have themes for every single month. We share those with all of our constituents. But ask the editors that you work closely with, do you have themes at different times of the year? For us, like it's very specific. Like on the front of the magazine, it's like, for November, it'll be like, this is the joy issue. October was, this is the respect life issue. January is Catholic schools issue. It's not like a vague theme, like it's very specific. We print them on the front. So get a list of those and be really I have a story that I want published. It's a feature story and it's about, Sister so-and-so coming back from South Africa. And I might want that story to come out now because she just got back, but I see in March, you have a missionary work theme, like that's your theme. So if I get that email from you and I say, Sister so-and-so just came back, we've attached this story. I see that your March issue is around this. Do you think it could be slotted in as one of your feature stories? That editor is going to respond really positively to that. So there you're being, you're being extremely targeted with your timing and with the theme. Again, I already kind of mentioned it, but saying like, I think this is best for print or I think this is best for digital. All of these things are going to help us, help you. And then last thing here is just make the editor's life easier, okay? Our team, was just, we put out a very high-end production magazine, and the pace and the schedule is absolutely relentless, right? Like it's every single month. We have to have all content in by the 25th of every month, and it goes to print by the 5th of the next month. And so we have this like 2 to 3 week window where we have to completely reset and do everything over again and get the stories and get the writers assigned and be working on revisions and get the next month's ads. And it is a absolutely never-ending, relentless amount of work. And we only have it's my editor and then a graphic designer, right? Like it's just the two of them primarily who are doing all of that work. So the easier you can make their life, the better, and that's going to help get your stuff into print. This next one really builds off of that. Be turnkey. Pre-write your stories and really pay attention to things like spelling, grammar, and other boring stuff, right? Like that's not the stuff that I find fun. I loved publishing books because they hired copywriters, and so I just got to write the book and let them worry about, things like spelling and grammar. That is the boring stuff, but I'll tell you this, like our reputation is often built around things like spelling errors and grammatical stuff. So it really, really matters to the editor. And also pre-write your stories. The number of times someone comes to us and their press release is, really just the who, what, where, why, and when, and they want our editor to then go out and assign someone a story and go interview somebody and it's a lot of work, and we absolutely do that, right? We absolutely do that every single month for many stories, but there is a limit to how many stories we can do that, right? Because there's capacity issues. If you want to get into the magazine more often, when you can present it as, look, the story is written, it's copy edited, it's designed, here's 3 or 4 beautiful images that can go with it, and you've created this turnkey solution where that editor can just literally drop it in. Or for me on the website, like this is a big one for digital. Like I don't have time because I am posting 2 or 3 things a day, and it is often time bound. I don't have time to post something on the website, like to go and to interview somebody for you and to write the story for you and then to post it. But if you send it to me and it's like, hey, the story's written, and I can just cut and paste, or I can, a lot of times in our weekly newsletters, I'm looking for things because it's very highlight driven and bullet driven. And if I get a story in and it's like, oh, okay, I wrote a headline and now I can cut and paste 4 bullets and here's a nice image from it. Like I can, that's so turnkey and easy for me that it's much easier to get that content in. All right, next. This is a big one. Names, names, names. Names. Get us names. Get real people involved in your stories, and parishes too. Figure out. The reality is that the most exciting content to like anyone, right? Like, what is a news article that you would be most excited to read? That's a real question. It's not rhetorical. What's an article online, in print, in a newsletter that you would be most excited to read? Yourself even, right? Somebody you know or yourself, right? So we want to fill our publications with names. We want it to be, every single month that we get the most positive feedback from the people we are featuring, right? It's not rocket science. So the more that you can feature people, the better. And that can be, newly vowed sister Mary Margaret from St. John's Parish in this city, who grew up going and playing on the soccer team with this school under this coach, who was the first person who asked her, have you ever thought about religious life, right? Like, you see how like these can be worked into your stories, right? Like, you can find the names and work them all in, and now you've got all these touch points that are going to make those people want to read it more. And then what do? They share it more, right? Like, they go onto their Facebook pages and they, copy and paste the link to the magazine article, which I've reprinted on the website, because they say, hey, Sister Mary Margaret was on my soccer team and I coached her and I was the first one and they talked about her in this article, like, check it out. And that's how those things get spread a lot easier. So when you are constructing your stories or thinking about your stories, come up with names, right? Figure out how you can include the names of people. People and parishes are the main two, but organizations as well. This leads us to our next one. Be a helpful promoter. So this can go to, if you've got some piece of content that you really want out there, like as a magazine, or as, for me as the website, like what I really want is more readers, right? I want more eyeballs. I want people to be more engaged. You can help with that. And if you share with us, when you send us an email, you send us a press release, how you will also be a helpful promoter, that's going to make your story that much more publishable and that much more enticing to us to promote. So if you can share with us how you will promote the story or how you will recruit involved parties. So again, once you've got all those names, and you can say things like, oh, we're going to be sharing this on our Facebook page, or we talked to the Mother House of the Dominican sisters who are going to make sure it goes out to their national email list, and we're going to have our YouTube star, young sister who's got 100,000 followers on YouTube, she's going to share it out through her Instagram. Like, when you can give us those touch points, that makes it more attractive. Like, oh, yeah, the Catholic Telegraph, we want more eyeballs on our story. So you're saying if we print this story, then it's going to go out to your email list and on your social media. That's going to make it that much more attractive and enticing us to make sure it gets published. For any of you who have done book publishing, in the dogfight world of not like academic publishing, but like really going to like an Ascension Press or that sort of a thing, like this is all they care about. They care about how you're going to promote the book, like almost more than what the book actually is, because at the end of the day, they got to sell those books, and so they want people who can go in there and say, oh, I've got an email list with 100,000 people on it, or oh, I've got 100,000 Instagram followers, or I speak at so many engagements every year where I can sell the books in person. Like this is true of all kinds of publishing, but really show them how you will be a promoter. Okay, last thing on here, and then we're going to get to Q&A. How are we on time? Oh, we're doing wonderful. We started a little late, but we should have 5 minutes. Okay. So these are some hard truths. I put these in here because we hear about these and they just are really hard for us to hear about because we didn't invent any of these things, okay? So we didn't invent them. We don't promote them. We don't even necessarily want them to be this way, but these are the realities we have to deal with. Please don't blame us for them, okay? And don't send us angry emails when you encounter them. These are just things that we all have to deal with, okay? Readers are excited by young people. Like it's just a reality. Even older readers, that like 55-year-old plus, female reader likes more often than not to read about high school kids or about the 25-year-old family. Like this is just a reality we deal with. It's harder to present a story in a super engaging way about what's going on in older audiences. Many of the highly engaged Catholics, and these are the people who are our most loyal readers, tend to be, lean very traditional, right? Like this is just a reality. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. It is just a reality. When we published an article a few months ago saying this was pre-Roe v. Wade, but we said how it'd be wonderful if Roe v. Wade was overturned, but that doesn't mean that the work for a right to life, our right to life ceases. And it was a very intelligent and thoughtful article about all the things that still needed to happen. The hate mail that we got, right, because it wasn't, right-wing enough, there was a lot to it. So just like be aware that these are these are issues that we are dealing with. The habit is very much in fashion, right? It just is, okay? I know that I'm telling you things that you already know. Like you already know that it's harder to market, all of these things, that these things exist. So I'm mostly here to say, like, we did not create them, nor do we promote them. So please don't blame us for them, right? I have to create a daily scripture meditation. So every single day we do it in batches. I was doing it at work this morning. It's a image with a scripture quote and a question, and the image it all changes every single day based on the readings. And the number of times I've included non-habited women religious who are oftentimes, it's like they're handing out food at a soup kitchen or they're doing something like that. And then we'll have a picture of a habited religious woman, and I get emails that are like, how come you never feature non-habited religious sisters? And I'm like, I am. It's not my fault that you don't know that I am. Like, I am, right? Or the number of times that I've gotten the habited sister in there, and I will literally get emails that say things like, the church is so far behind, it's so far in the past, I don't even want to be a part of the church anymore because you guys are stuck 50 years ago. Like, this is not my, you're like, people are yelling at me, and I'm like, what do you want me to do? Like, this is not my fault. This is not what I'm here for. So whatever your religious congregation is dealing with, just know that these are truths that supersede us. And it doesn't help us help you if we make any of these things an issue, because we can't do anything about them. Okay. Last thing I'll say, we're all here, the Great Commission is to go out and to share the good news. Evangelization means sharing good news. We are all communicators. You can't evangelize if you can't communicate. That's what we're here for. So thank you all for your hard work as communicators and as evangelists. And let's be praying for one another. And remember that this is our job is to share good news. So I sped through those last two because it is 1:51. Do we have a couple minutes or no? Not really?
The next session starts at 2.
Next session starts in 9 minutes. But so I will hang out over here, though, if you want to chat about anything. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, you guys being here. And if you need anything, just reach out, okay? Thank you.